Hello and welcome. You're watching the news tonight, your daily roundup of all the news that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and our focus tonight is on the climate change talks in Lima, where Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar implored developed countries to do more to tackle the global crisis. More on that later in the show, but first let's take a look at the headlines we're tracking right now. Controversy over conversions triggers uproar in Parliament. Government dismisses charges linking incident to the RSS. Decks cleared for the insurance bill to be presented in the House. Select committee report tabled in the Rajya Sabha with dissent notes by 4 parties. Legal respite for human rights activist Sharmila Irom. Government drops attempt suicide from a list of crimes punishable by prison. The climate conference in Lima clears green fund worth over $10 billion. India and China call it too little to help poor nations. And a proud day for the subcontinent. Child rights activists Kailash Satyarthi and Malala Yousafzai received the Nobel Prize for Peace. The top story tonight, the reported conversion of Muslim families to Hinduism in Agra had the opposition members on their feet in the Rajya Sabha today. The opposition claimed that Hindu outfits and cells of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh had lured the Muslims to convert. The government replied that it was committed to secularism while rejecting charges against the RSS.
BSP Chief Mayawati alleged that RSS affiliate Bajrang Dal is inducing people to convert. Seeking a response from the government, she warned that a similar exercise was being planned in Aligarh as well, where Christians are being targeted for conversion to Hinduism.
मैं ये बताना चाहती हूँ क्योंकि यदि जबरन धर्म परिवर्तन का ये जो मुहिम छेड़ी है ये खास तौर से आरएसएस और उनके सहयोगी संगठनों ने और यदि इसको नहीं रोका तो पूरे देश के अंदर सांप्रदायिक तनाव पैदा हो जाएगा और देश के अंदर हाहाकार मच जाएगा। ये स्टेट का सब्जेक्ट नहीं है, ये सेंट्रल का भी है।
Other opposition parties also echoed similar sentiments. They also sought the Prime Minister's response on the issue.
निर्देश दे सरकार को, आप सरकार को निर्देश दे, सदन की भावना को देखते हुए, देश के संविधान को देखते हुए सरकार को निर्देश दिया जाए कि सरकार इस पे अपनी सफाई दे, सरकार आश्वस्त करे।
सरकार को यहाँ पे आकर जवाब देना होगा प्रधानमंत्री साहब को, ये निर्देश आप दे, चेयर में बैठ के आपको देना होगा कि प्रधानमंत्री आकर ये बात को स्पष्ट करे यहाँ पर।
The government, on the other hand, pointed out that law and order was a state subject and the state government had filed an FIR on it. However, it objected naming the RSS in the case.
कि किसी भी संगठन का नाम जो लिया गया है, विशेष तौर से आरएसएस का, उस नाम को हटाया जाए, स्पेंड किया जाए और जो भी कार्रवाई है वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को करना है। पहले मायावती जी वहाँ सरकार में थी, अभी मुलायम सिंह जी सरकार में है, उनको करना है। ये राज्य के कानून व्यवस्था से जुड़ा हुआ मुद्दा है, केंद्र से इसका कोई मतलब नहीं।
As the Treasury benches opposed the issue, the chair asked members to allow zero-hour mentions, while urging the opposition to give clear notice under relevant rules for discussion. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the insurance bill is all set to be presented in Parliament. The Select Committee on Insurance tabled its report in the Rajya Sabha today. The report sought 49% cap on foreign investment in insurance.
The current limit for foreign direct investment in insurance is 26%. The Select Committee is recommending that a composite cap of 49% should include all forms of foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. The panel suggested the inclusion of a person from the insurance industry in the Securities Appellate Tribunal as an expert. It also recommended that penalties on insurance companies be linked to the seriousness of their offences. Among other recommendations, it advocated that capital requirements be retained at 100 crore level to ensure that health insurers have adequate capacity for providing critical services to citizens. Other recommendations include adequate protective mechanism to ensure agents get commissions that could be determined by Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. The recommendations are in line with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's budget speech in July. The panel report, however, contained dissent notes from 4 members. P. Rajiv of CPM, Derek O'Brien of TMC, Ram Gopal Yadav of SP and KC Tyagi of the JDU. The Rajya Sabha appointed a 15-member select committee to scrutinize the long-pending Insurance Laws Amendment Bill 2008. The bill was held up for nearly 6 years on account of political differences. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
And Trinamool Congress MP Kalyan Banerjee apologized in the Lok Sabha today for his unparliamentary remark against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The BJP had given a notice for censure motion against Banerjee earlier. Banerjee tendered his apology during 0 hour in the lower house. He said that he had no intention of hurting anyone's feelings or disrespecting the Prime Minister. Earlier, Speaker Sumitra Mahajan had advised the MP to apologize for his remark to put the matter to rest. However, the Congress was of the opinion that an apology would start a trend of sorts of regretting remarks made outside the House.
Making the statement from this chair to respect your chair, and if I hurt anybody's sentiment, I express my regret.
Thank you. संसद सदस्य जो एक प्रकार से प्रजातंत्र में लाखों लोगों से का प्रतिनिधित्व करता है, उसका सम्मान सदन के बाहर भी रहे, इसकी अपेक्षा कहीं ना कहीं की जाती है। उसी प्रकार वो सदस्य भी ये देखे कि किसी दूसरे सदस्य के बारे में मैं अपमानजनक बाहर भी नहीं बोलूं, अंदर भी नहीं बोलूं, ये भी अपेक्षा करना ये अस्वाभाविक है, ऐसा मैं नहीं मानती हूँ।
आपको अधिकार है, अगर मैं अनपार्लियामेंट्री मिसबिहेव किया, आप मुझे शिक्षा दे सकते हैं। अगर कल्याण जी यहाँ पर कुछ बोले हैं, अगर आप अनपार्लियामेंट्री है, आप निकाल कर देख के उसको लेकिन बाहर के जो भाषणों को या बाहर के वक्तव्यों को अगर यहाँ चर्चा अगर आप करते बैठेंगे तो वो ठीक नहीं होगा। तो इसीलिए आप ऐसा प्रथा मत डालिए, आपने इसको सुलझाया है, इसको खत्म कर दीजिए।
On to Russian President Vladimir Putin's India visit, and prior to his visit, he is given a welcome sign to India in terms of business. He said instead of the dollar or euro, the two countries could do business with the rupee or the ruble. In the summit meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin on Thursday, the two sides are expected to sign several agreements besides finding ways of increasing business engagement.
A summit meeting will be held between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday. The top priority will be boosting trade ties between the two countries. Putin's offer of doing business in rupees and rubles is a step in this direction. The two countries are expected to lay out a 10-year roadmap when the two leaders meet.
A dominant theme of this summit will be the spelling out by the two leaders of a joint vision of our relationship for the next decade. It will provide a roadmap for enhancing the partnership between our countries to qualitatively new levels. It will have a strong focus on redefining the economic partnership.
Prime Minister Modi and President Putin will also hold a joint meeting with business leaders of both countries. Besides oil and gas, there will be talks regarding nuclear energy as well. While Russia wants India to invest in its oil and gas fields, India wants more nuclear power units.
India has an opportunity to cash in on this opening and sign a deal possibly for gas exports at a very favorable price. We can circumvent that by using processed oil.
The private sector is expecting a lot of business from Russia. There will also be talks surrounding smart cities, defense equipment and fighter jets.
Which has its own national interests. One of them is having traditionally friendly relations with the Russian Federation, which is, I think, is a great partner for India. We are the only pair in the world of the great powers which never had even a quarrel with each other.
India has reduced defense equipment imports from Russia in recent times, affecting the latter's economy. Trade between India and Russia stands at a mere $10 billion. Russia will also soon open up its agriculture sector to the world, throwing open new opportunities to Indian farmers. This will help small industries. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, now, and the Union Cabinet met this evening at the Prime Minister's residence, and in fact, we have Vishal Daya joining us on the phone line with more on that meeting. Vishal, as far as the outcomes of the meeting are concerned, we believe the Lokpal Bill, in fact, the Lokpal Act, some amendments have been made to it. Could you fill in with details of what really happened?
Well, Ishan, you're right. The cabinet meeting lasted for almost 3 hours at the Prime Minister's residence, and two major, decisions which our sources say has been taken by the cabinet today. One of them deals with, of course, the amendments to the Lokpal Act. Now, there were at least 7 to 8 amendments which the government wants to bring to the Lokpal Act. What our sources say that at least 3 of them have been cleared tonight in the cabinet meeting. One very important, amendment which seems to have been cleared by the cabinet apparently deals with the format in which the public servants have to go ahead and declare their assets. Remember, there has been a lot of talk about that particular decision. But apart from that, another very important decision which has been taken by the cabinet is to approve the amendments to the bill which seeks to bring in FDI in the insurance sector. Today itself, there was a select committee report which was tabled on the House in the upper house on this particular bill, and what our sources say in the government is that the cabinet has approved the amendments to the insurance FDI and insurance bill based on those recommendations of the select committee, something which will now reflect in the improved or the rather amended bill which will be brought to the upper house of parliament by the government. And let's not forget that this was the this particular bill was topmost on the priority and the agenda of the government in this particular session. Mm-hmm. It's something which has not happened so far. The bill could get the assent of only the lower house, but the upper house has to and take it up. And now that the select committee report is out and the cabinet has also approved the amendments, we're expecting that in the last 6 to 7 remaining days of the winter session, the government would try and push through the bill in the upper house as well.
All right, Vishal, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for that update. Vishal, they are keeping a track of all the political developments as far as the cabinet meeting goes and important developments over there as far as bills are concerned. Now, moving on, Junior Finance Minister Jayant Sinha today made a strong case for structural reforms to achieve a high growth rate of 7 to 8% on a sustained basis. Addressing the Delhi Economics Conclave on Wednesday, he said that India could become a $4 to $5 trillion economy in the next 10 to 12 years.
Union Minister Jayant Sinha made a strong case for big structural reforms to ensure a high growth of 7 to 8% and a $4 trillion status for the Indian economy. While cautioning about impending ups and downs, he said India must grow at this rate on a sustained basis to achieve the goal.
If indeed we are able to take our $2 trillion economy and get it onto this sustainable 7 to 8% growth rate, then we are in a situation where, our $2 trillion economy doubles in the next 10 or 12 years to $4 trillion. And, as the rupee strengthens, we may even get closer to $5 trillion.
GDP growth rate has been below 5% in the last 2 financial years. This year, GDP growth rate is estimated to be in the range of 5.5 to 6%. Jayant Sinha said macroeconomic stability, building world-class infrastructure, unlocking entrepreneurial energy and a fair social security system is a must to achieve this.
Ultimately, long-term CAGR for the Indian economy has to be at 7 to 8%. That's really what we are aspiring to. And even as we move towards a 7 to 8% economic growth, we have to do it in a way that's non-inflationary.
India's wholesale inflation growth rate plunged to a 5-year low this October. That renewed calls for an interest rate cut by the industry that the government supported. But so far, India's central bank has refused to lower the benchmark interest rate. Although early this month, while presenting its last bi-monthly economic policy, the RBI governor did indicate that it would consider the measure early next year. Krishna Tripathi report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, central government departments could soon be paperless because they've decided to do away with manual movements of files in offices. First step in this direction, all files relating to public procurements will go digital from the 1st of January 2015 and there'll be no physical movement of files. The scheme will be extended to all government departments. This move is part of the Modi government's Digital India program launched in August this year.
Our files are, processed manually. But I am going to announce here that from 1st January 2015, we shall be doing away with even processing of manual files. we shall be, my Director General, who is not present incidentally here, he has given the assignment to us, and we have already done the trial runs. Testing have been done.
The Supreme Court on Wednesday further extended the stay on the execution of Yaqub Abdul Razak Memon. Yaqub Memon is the lone death row convict in the 1993 Mumbai serial blast case. The court issued notices to the Maharashtra Special Task Force and the CBI on Memon's plea seeking the review of his death penalty. The court had in March 2013 upheld Memon's death sentence. At least 257 people were killed in 13 blasts at several Mumbai landmarks, including the Bombay Stock Exchange, a popular cinema, and 2 crowded markets.
The judges have issued notice in the matter, that is in our review petition, and they have made it returnable in the end of January. Until then, they have stayed the execution of the death sentence on Yaqub Memon. Amongst a lot of other points that we had argued, one specific point which we argued, that we had been convicted under 3(3) of the TADA Act, and that calls for the maximum of life sentence. However, we have been granted death sentence.
Now, India has dropped attempted suicide from a list of crimes punishable by prison. This potentially provides a legal breather for people like human rights activist Irom Sharmila, who has been on a fast unto death for the past 14 years. The government claims that the decision to repeal Section 309 of the IPC has support of 18 states and 4 union territories. Minister of State for Home Haribhai Chaudhary told Rajya Sabha that the Law Commission of India recommended the section to be removed from the statute book and added, since law and order is a state subject, views of all states and union territories were sought. Well, time for a very quick break, but coming up on the other side, day 2 of the Adelaide Test belongs to Australia, with India now set to chase a mammoth total. More on that on the other side. Welcome back. Here with the news tonight on Rajya Sabha TV. Now, in a special focus story tonight, the global climate talks in Lima saw the announcement of a new green climate fund worth over $10 billion. Australia turned out to be a surprise donor, but India and China said the fund was too little to help developing countries cope with green emissions.
A surprise donation from Australia took the new Green Climate Fund past the United Nations goal of $10 billion. The money will help poor nations cope with global warming.
I have been tasked by the Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott to announce today at this meeting that Australia will pledge a contribution of 200 million Australian dollars over 4 years to the Green Climate Fund.
Making an intervention, Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar said India is committed to play its part in the global fight against climate change. However, he called the need for climate finance in developing countries huge, almost in the range of $600 billion to $1,500 billion a year. Most of the 190 nations welcomed the cash injection by both Australia and Belgium. But China said rich countries were not working fast enough to meet the broader goal of providing $100 billion a year by 2020.
We breached the $10 billion equivalent in terms of pledged amounts. So if we look at the amounts that were pledged for the fund, since the start of this resource mobilization exercise 5 months ago, we stand at $10.14 billion equivalent. This means that the fund has basically turned the page.
Australia took much flack for not making a pledge at the donors' meeting last month. On Wednesday, it pledged $166 million, while Belgium donated $64 million.
Conséquent, avec un grand plaisir, que je vous annonce que la Belgique contribuera à la hauteur de 51,6 millions d'euros comme première contribution au Fonds vert pour le climat, dans un effort conjoint entre le niveau fédéral et les régions de Bruxelles-Capitale et la Wallonie.
Environment ministers are meeting in Lima from 1st to 12th December to work on a draft deal to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The fund is expected to help poor nations cut these emissions that have not only worsened desertification but led to more powerful storms and rising sea levels. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
To help us understand better the climate talks that are on in Lima, we're joined in the studio by Chetan Chauhan. He is the Associate Editor of the Hindustan Times. Thanks very much for coming in, Chetan. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar also talks about invest in India, where he says there is a tremendous potential given India's huge requirements in terms of energy and clean air and water. All these things could be good for developed countries to invest in India. Do you think this is a pitch that could sell as far as climate change is concerned?
No, this will... In the bilateral terms, it will sell because India has announced a huge target of 1 lakh megawatt generation from solar in the next 5 years. And if you see the renewable targets for the next 5-10 years, is a huge amount of potential.
Right.
So there's a lot of potential of investment in renewables. Apart from that, in the cement sector, the government has announced new emission norms, which are about 50% less than the earlier ones. New emission norms are also coming for the power sector. So when the cleaner emission norms come, it will mean investment in new technology. So there's a huge scope of investment in India. But that will not come from Green Climate Fund as such. It may come through the route of bilaterals for different countries, like US is investing, UK is investing, many European countries are investing. But what comes from Green Climate Fund will be primarily for technology and adaptation.
All right. But Chetan, talking about the larger goals as far as Lima is concerned, how do you think the talks have been progressing, given the fact that next year there is Paris, where the outcomes of this would be really the talking points and the basis of that entire conversation?
The talks so far have progressed smoothly, but many of the climate experts didn't expect a big game changer from Lima. Lima was expected to lay foundation for the Paris deal, but the real thing will come by March next year, when all the countries have to give their INDC, that is intended nationally determined contributions to fight climate change. So after March, the real action will come. But this conference at Lima can be a game changer for 2015 if the Green Climate Fund, the money that is flowing to the Green Climate Fund, is enormous. So far, it has touched 10 billion, but that was a commitment made in 2012, about 2 years ago. And the GCF is most important component for Lima. If Lima delivers on it, I think we can have a deal in Paris in 2015.
All right, so let's hope for that we have a deal coming out from Lima that could form the basis for Paris. Thanks very much, Chetan, for coming in and sharing perspective on this important story. Well, let's moving on. They came from different countries that have fought wars with each other and are still at loggerheads more often than not. But the Nobel Committee in Norway brought together India and Pakistan in a way that decimates all hatred, manufactured or otherwise. Pakistan's Malala Yousafzai and India's Kailash Satyarthi received their joint Nobel Peace Prize in a glittering ceremony in Oslo on Thursday.
One, the youngest ever Nobel laureate, and other, a somewhat older man. One from Pakistan and one from India. One Muslim, the other Hindu. Honoring Pakistan's Malala Yousafzai and India's Kailash Satyarthi, chairman of the Nobel Committee said the two represent symbols of what the world needs: more unity. Sharing the award for their work on promoting child rights in the troubled subcontinent, where millions are deprived of education and even their childhood, Satyarthi said the prize was a great opportunity to further his work against child slavery.
There is one serious disconnect, and that is the lack of compassion. Let us inculcate and transform the individual's compassion into global compassion. Let us globalize compassion.
17-year-old Malala, who survived a near-fatal Taliban attack 2 years ago, is determined to advocate education for girls.
Many children, especially in India and Pakistan, are deprived of their right to education because of social taboos, or they have been forced into child marriage or into child labor.
The first place this funding will go to is where my heart is: to build schools in Pakistan
especially in my home of Swat and Shangla.
The two received the Nobel medal, which is 18-carat green gold plated with 24-carat gold and weighs around 175 grams. They will share prize money worth $1.1 million. The ceremony saw performances by Pakistani singer Rahat Fateh Ali Khan and Sarod maestro Amjad Ali Khan and his sons Aman and Ayan. They spread the message of peace, harmony and non-violence with the raga for peace conceived specially for the occasion.
I hope the steps that Kailash Satyarthi and I have taken so far and will take on this journey will also bring change, lasting change.
Well, the US Senate has unanimously approved Richard Rahul Verma's nomination as the new US ambassador to India by a voice vote. Verma becomes the first Indian American to step into the role, succeeding Nancy Powell, who resigned back in March. Verma will arrive in New Delhi ahead of Obama's visit for the Republic Day ceremony on the 26th of January next year. Verma, who is a lawyer by profession, has earlier worked as a security advisor in the Senate, specializing in international law. He was vital to the key commission on the prevention of weapons of mass destruction. Verma also played an important role in the passage of the civil nuclear deal between India and the US. His association with President Barack Obama goes back to 2008. Moving on, BCCI President in exile N. Srinivasan today submitted an undertaking before the Supreme Court that he will keep away from all matters related to the IPL till he gets a clean chit. Srinivasan also asked the Apex Court to allow him to contest the BCCI elections. This was after the Supreme Court told BCCI that cricket would collapse if people lose confidence in the game. Earlier on Tuesday, the Supreme Court insisted that action must be taken against Srinivasan's son-in-law, Gurunath Mayappan. It also decided to appoint a two-member committee of retired judges to look into the matter.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उनके दलील को खारिज करते हुए इस बीसीसीआई के अगले होने वाले एजीएम को 31 जनवरी तक के लिए स्थगित कर दिया.
All right, let's move on to the on-field sports, where injured captain Michael Clarke made a surprise return to the crease and struck an inspiring century to put Australia in command on the second day of the Adelaide Test. Clarke had retired hurt on 60 with a lower back injury on the opening day, but his 128-run knock helped drive the host to 517 for 7 by stumps at the Adelaide Oval. The captain's batting partner, Stephen Smith, was unbeaten on 162 when the umpires halted play due to poor light. The two put up a 163-run partnership on a day of 4 rain interruptions. India looked a demoralised lot as they dropped a series of catches in a shoddy fielding display. Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.